everybody, I'm Amy, this is my wife Maggie, and together we are ThinkerThemer. I'm all about the mechanics, Maggie is all about the theme, and this is part 3 of our series where we are attempting to rate every game in our board game collection out of 10. So we're doing 10, out of 10.
Rated out of 10, yes.
And we are really enjoying this series, part 3.
Yeah, we're chipping away at the collection a little bit at a time. I want to say we're having quite a lot of fun going through this process.
Yeah. It's so nice reflecting on older games, especially.
It really is. And kind of comparing it to, but how do they stack up against some of the newer stuff? And now that you've played new stuff, it's like how, if you revisit the other stuff, it's like, does it still live up to the hype that they had at the time? Also, we've been really enjoying reading through all of the comments that you've been writing, all the engagement that you've had with this series. I think it's really, even if we're not getting a chance to get to all the comments, we really appreciate all of that.
Yes, and love hearing your thoughts about the different games as well, and whether you agree more with Maggie or with I or neither of us.
Yeah.
We love hearing about your thoughts, so please continue to let us know what you think about each of the 10 games that we're reviewing. So I think this episode, we'll just get straight into it.
Let's just get into it.
Let's get into it, and let's start. Why don't we start on your side?
All right.
With something light and easy. Let's just ease into this part 3.
Yeah, we'll start with one. Just one.
Just one.
Just one. This little party game, and when I say little, it's like it's so simple. Like it's such a simple premise. The premise is just one. You have one word that then it's sort of, out of a selection, out of a card, you get to pick one word, but you don't know what that word is if you're going to be the person guessing. And everybody else around the table gets to put just one word on their little easel to try and give you a clue as to what that word is that you need to guess. The catch is people don't know what what everyone else is writing. And if people write the same clue, those get canceled. They cancel each other out. So you're having this debate in your mind going as you're picking, what clue to give. It's like, this has to be obvious enough that the person's going to go, oh, of course, yes, I think this is the clue or this is the word that I'm trying to guess, but not so obvious that everyone's going to put the same thing and cancel each other out, and then the person may have, end up with no clues or like just one clue, and then we're like, ah. So a great little, obviously very, very light, but lots of hilarity ensues from trying to piece together all these random bits of information. What could this possibly relate to? And it's really interesting to see how creative people get with some of the clues.
It's really interesting because sometimes you have two people. This is also a cooperative game, so you're all trying to help the person guess the word. And in this game, there is a way to score, I believe, but nobody scores.
We've never scored.
I doubt anybody scores. If you do, let us know in the comments. But we never score when we play this game because it's just one of those warm-up games that's really easy to get straight into, and you just continue playing basically until everybody gets sick of it, and then you stop playing.
Yeah.
But
the fun is in just the guessing and then seeing, what kind of hilarious stuff people are going to come up with.
What I was going to say is it's really interesting when two people that you're playing with seem to have some kind of alignment
just in sync.
Yeah. Completely. I think there's been a couple of games where you've played with someone else who might be a real music fan, and you always go down the same path of the associations.
Yeah.
And it's really strange because you'll pick a really obscure association and so will they. And that just creates a lot of laughter around the table because it's like, how would you also pick that word?
Yeah.
And then sometimes there's a really obvious word that nobody writes down because they're too scared that everyone else is going to write it down. And so the guesser is missing the most obvious clue. I also really like in this game that there's a synergy of all of the different words. So one clue alone makes not very much sense. So if you have, for example, the word robot and one person has written down silver, and that's the only clue you have, well, you're going to have to take a real stab in the dark. But if it's silver and metal and AI or something like that.
Electric, or it's like, it could be
what links all of these things together? And so it's a really nice warm-up, very much light, very much party-style game. Yeah. And a question that came up around keeping games in our collection that are more for other people than for us, this would be one of them. And it's not the case that it's just one group of friends that really like this. What I've found with this game is this is pretty universal as a game that you can take to anywhere.
Big crowd pleaser.
Real crowd pleaser. You can take it to work. You can take it to, a party. If people are drinking, you can also take this game. It's a very easy game to get to the table.
Non-gamers as well love this game. Because it's like the barrier to entry is
and
so
non-gamers. Yeah,
but it's such a low barrier to entry, so fun. You can get the concept so quickly, and then it's just so much around going, what, or ending up with no clues, and you're going, how am I going to make this work now? Or I think it's just so much of it isn't that dynamic.
And also those points in time where someone writes down a clue that
you were like, how?
No, it's not at all associated with it, or it's just so weird that it becomes an in-joke for for that group of people for forevermore. So it's a pretty funny game for generating moments and memories like that. Having said that, my score for this game is a 7. So I'm raving about the ability of this game to make great memories and to generate a lot of fun. I do like fun games. Just one. I do like party games as well, but just one is a little bit lower for me, only because of the fact that generally we don't score. It is a cooperative game, and for me, I love the first couple of rounds of this game, but the issue is that everyone loves this game, and so to get it back off the table, sometimes it's a little bit difficult. Everyone's like, no, let's do some more. Let's keep going. And some games of this have gone on for so long, and then I've regretted everything because I've got all these other games that I wanted to get onto the table. But for me, it's just, doesn't have the competitive tension that I love.
See, interestingly, for me, it's a little bit higher than you. So it's a 7.3, which is outrageous considering I don't enjoy fun games. Games that are about just having a laugh, having fun. But for some reason, I just think I find this design is so clever in its simplicity, and just that moment where I think because of the puzzle of trying to make sense of this array of words and go, what could they all relate to? I find that my mind is both engaged. Well, one, it's kind of terrifying where you're the person learning. So you're guessing, because you're like, am I going to be able to put this together?
All the pressure is
and everyone's looking
and
at
everyone's like,
it's
obvious.
It's so obvious. You're like, is it? I have no idea what this is. But then also when you're writing the clue, there's that tension of what is the thing that I'm going to write that no one else is going to write? And then you're kind of eyeing the other person going, don't you put that down? Don't put the same clue down. And so I find that I'm engaged both when the clues are being revealed because you're contributing to that, but also when you're guessing. So I think because of that, it's I think it's very, very clever. I agree with you that it's not a game that I can play for hours and hours and hours. It's once we play, a couple of rounds of it, it's okay, that was fun.
Okay, let's move on to something harder, more competitive.
Let's play just one round.
I agree. But also, it's hard not to, rate this higher simply because of the fact that anytime we go home for Christmas, this is a no-brainer. This game will always be packed, and that's got, that's something to say about the evergreenness of this game. So if you're looking for a game that works for gamers and non-gamers alike, check out Just One.
There you go.
The next game is a game called Sheepy Time. Now, Sheepy Time is not that old of a game. In fact, I think it probably came out maybe a couple of years ago. But Sheepy Time is a push your luck game. And it's all based around counting sheep. So you're trying to fall asleep and you are counting sheep in your mind. And what you're trying to avoid is being woken up by a nightmare. And in this game, there's going to be a deck of cards and you're going to choose a nightmare to shuffle into this deck of cards. And these are the cards that you want to try and avoid because in this game, you're moving around a circuit and you're moving your little sheep meeple, your sheeple, around the circuit, and you're trying to jump the fence as many times as you can. And when you decide that you want to stop jumping the fence, you can. But if you decide to keep pushing your luck, there's this nightmare that's going to be chasing you around the circuit. And you don't want to get caught by the nightmare because that will wake you up and it will cancel out all that hard work you've put into moving around the circuit and jumping the fence.
Yeah, we also don't want to get caught out before jumping over the fence, having the nightmare beat you to the fence. And essentially you end up getting every time you jump the fence, you get to decide, okay, I'm going to stop now and rest and sort of take myself out of this round in a good way, like on your own terms. Or you're going to go, oh, maybe I'll push it a little bit more and try and get another round. But if that nightmare gets to jump that fence before you do manage to get that full round, then you completely eliminate it out of that round.
Yeah, and there's also things that can help you out along the way. So there's these dream tiles that you're able to draft and put out around the circuit. And when you land in those particular spots, if you've banked enough Z's tokens on them, you get to use them to help move you forward in the game or
special abilities,
break the game, special abilities, that type of thing. And basically the game goes on until you can reach your pillow. But the interesting thing about the scoring in this game is that in every round, the person who has the most points is going to be able to move their pillow back the most. So what you're doing is you're moving the end goal for yourself closer to you so that your player token maybe next round will be able to reach your pillow and get the number of points in order to ultimately win the game. So it's a really, it's super cute. I'll start by saying it's super cute.
And that it inevitably, whenever we're playing with anyone who's sort of new to like the room, so many people are like, what's that game? Is that Sheepy Time any good? Because just the artwork, the aesthetic, like just it just catches people's eyes.
It really does. It's probably almost one of the most asked about games on our shelf. People come across it and they're just like, this is so cute. Can we play this? What's it like? And the good thing about it is it's really easy to get to the table. It's pretty straightforward in terms of a rule set. And it's one of the most purest forms, I think, of push your luck that we have in our collection. It's pretty quick to play. You can, you can ratchet up the difficulty by adding in different nightmares that behave in different ways and are harder to beat. I quite enjoy it. I mean, for me, it's a very simple game, but I enjoy it when we play it.
Well, how much?
Really
let's
cute.
quantify how much you enjoy it.
I gave it a 7.1.
Okay, so Sheepy Time for me is a lot lower. It's a 6.7 because it's a game that I don't mind playing it, but I just don't connect with the. I think I really struggle with just constantly reading what are those dream tiles doing, and and never really. I just don't find that element engaging. Not because it's badly done. It's just I don't connect with that. That type of like reading a lot of those things and go, oh, that's right, and I could do this or I could do that. So
I'll also say that Maggie is really risk averse, so it's quite funny because she'll jump the fence and just
I'm
be
done.
I'm done. No, happy to sit here on this one. I am done. I'm just going to lie down and no, the nightmare is not going to get me.
Yeah, so I think from like a strategy point, it's like it just doesn't scratch the itch of the type of puzzle that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So for that reason, it just sits a bit lower.
Yeah.
Love the production of it. Love the artwork. Love all the little components, like the little meeple components, and the fact that you actually have a 3D fence that you're jumping.
Yeah.
Like all of that, I think is it's really nice.
It's really nicely done, and it's really cute, and everyone always wants to play it. So for that reason, I think it has to stay in our collection until a different push your luck game takes its place.
Well, I can already think of another push your luck game that I enjoy, but that maybe will be for
I don't even know what game she's talking about. I'm going to have to ask her after.
Have some guesses in the comments. See if you can guess
push
what
your
I
luck
want.
Game.
What could it be?
Another push your luck game that's like a filler game though?
Not a filler game.
Okay.
Oh, there's games that are like around.
Is it a substitute for that game or not?
No, because it's a much more it's a much bigger investment time wise.
Time will tell what that game is. Okay, the next game is a classic.
It is a classic.
This is Terraforming Mars.
Yes.
And I'll let Maggie talk about this one.
In Terraforming Mars, we are terraforming Mars. We are trying to make Mars habitable. Is it habitable? Mm-hmm. Yeah, not inhabitable. Inhabitable means that you cannot.
Correct.
So it is inhabitable at the start of the game, and then we're going to make sure. Well, through a lot of card play and a lot of different actions, we're going to get the water. So making sure that we get all the water tiles sort of in and the beautiful maps, all the hexes. We're going to get the oxygen level up, and we're going to make sure that the temperature again is one where humans can survive. Now, this is a game that for the longest time we both sort of stayed away from because we're not really big into space sort of themes, and I was like, oh, Mars, I don't know. But then we were lucky enough that we were gifted this copy, and I started playing going, this is so fun. Like, there's just so many elements of, those cranking those gears and going, how do I produce more money to get these things, or the cards then start giving you so many different options of things to do. So it's a game that I also love to play solo, even potentially more than multiplayer, because I think you don't enjoy it as much, but also I never win when I play multiplayer. so it's one of those like, even when I feel like, I don't know why, when I lose solo, it doesn't feel as painful as when I lose multiplayer and you're there. But
look, it's a really interesting game. The thing that people always talk about with Terraforming Mars, and the thing that's most compelling to me, I guess, is the card play. You have to kind of very actively engage in hand management with the cards that you have in your hand. You're also thinking about the sequence in which to play them, and then you're also engine building. So the more of certain types of cards that you have are going to generate resources and help you get things done and help you play other cards, and that's going to give you this momentum in this game, which I think is why it's so popular, because it feels as though you're building lots of momentum throughout the game, and then there's all these different levers that you can affect, and everybody's cooperating on these levers,
on the main thing of those tracks. But individually, you are still.
But you want to
competing.
be the one contributing to them the most. So it is very competitive. Still.
So I think just all in all, this is it's an excellent game. There's a reason why it's so high up in so many people's regards. But I absolutely love this game, and I am so glad that it came into my life. And for that reason, I have given it a 9.3. So 9.3 is quite high.
That is very telling, I think. If you've been watching along with Maggie's ratings, that's
a contender. It's what I would call.
Contender. Absolutely.
Terraforming Mars. What did you give it?
It's a huge gap between you and I on this one. I gave Terraforming Mars 7.8. So if you watched the first episode, we talked about Arc Nova. A lot of people compare Terraforming Mars to Arc Nova. I gave Arc Nova a 7.9. It's probably a theme that I'm more attracted to than the space theme. And there's a little bit more going on with the action selection that I really enjoy in Arc Nova. I'm coming back to it. Terraforming Mars is only marginally, fraction lower at 7.8. But for both of the games, the reason why they're lower rated for me is the same. The level of interaction between players. I think I'm pretty good at Terraforming Mars. Like, I have a good time competing against really myself and the puzzle and the optimization. But I just don't feel like I'm that invested in what everybody else is doing. I like shifting the dials. I like staging out my, the way that I'm going to do things. But that kind of game, it just falls a little bit flat for me.
Every time we played it at the end, you're like,
even when I win, or if I win by a lot, I'm still just like, like, it's fine for me, but it's just not my play style.
I just really enjoy it. I don't know what it is about it. I just really love those three things coming to life, those three dials kind of happening.
You really love this game.
I really do.
Love. And it helps that it's so great solo, because you really enjoy as a solo as well.
Anyways, so that's Terraforming Mars, and now we're going to move on to another game, but not too far away, because we thought we'd do them at the same time so that you have the comparison point, so you don't have to flick between videos. But it is Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition.
Yes.
Now, this is meant to be the more streamlined version of Terraforming Mars, and it is. It's a smaller box to begin with, but also it plays in a shorter time. So it's really meant to play within an hour usually. It again plays, you can play it solo and up to 4 players, I believe, with this version, and essentially you're trying to do the same things. But the difference with this game is that you're all kind of selecting what type of phase you're going to be activating every round, and so it's only the phases that get selected that will take place for everyone on the table. If you're the one who selected it, then you usually kind of get to have a bit of an advantage as well. Unlike in the main game where the phases are kind of like everyone's sort of going through things kind of like at the same time, or you're waiting for, people will pass and then that'll kind of move things along. But in this one, it's sort of at different, it affects the speed of the game.
It's interesting as well because it creates this puzzle where you can't do the same phase twice in a row as well. So individually. And so you're thinking, well, if I do this now, then I won't be able to do it again. So you're just hoping someone else plays that phase. And it is interesting, getting to do all the bonus things that everybody else is activating.
Yeah.
So, and also watching to think about, well, I think that person's about to do production, so maybe I could do something else and benefit from both of the actions.
Yeah. So you still have like a truckload of cards. So there's still all of that card play that a lot of people love from the main game. That's still captured here. You do lose a lot of that central building, the hex tiles, placing those tiles, because in this one you kind of have the oceans are there, but they're already placed, and all you're really doing is kind of flipping them over. And so you obviously compromising on some elements, and that's probably the main thing with this game is that yes, you do get to capture the essence of the bigger sibling Terraforming Mars, but it does definitely feel like a compromise in that you're going to do it faster. It's things are a lot more kind of efficient, but it's not the same.
I also think
feel like the same.
Yeah, for me, I was attracted to this version because I backed it on Kickstarter, and because it's the Kickstarter edition, there are some beautiful double-layered boards.
Yep.
I also have all of the neoprene mats.
Yep.
And I like having for card games that organization of where the cards go in front of you.
Yeah.
So for that reason, when I originally talked about this game, I thought it would replace my need to ever play Terraforming Mars, the original game, ever again. But since we've had them both on our shelf for a while now, I have to say that if I'm going to sit down to Terraforming Mars, and Maggie will be the one that's driving that because she loves it so much, I think I'd rather sit down to the big experience, because even though, yes, like the edition that we have, it's been deluxeified a lot since then, but we still have kind of that original. It's not the greatest artwork that was ever created, which I'm surprised that Maggie loves it so much.
Yeah. It's got its own charm, I guess, in a way, because of that.
But it's so, I don't know, because the type of gamers that we are as a household, I think we make time for big game experiences. We love Euros. We love sitting down. We don't mind if we have to sit down for 3 hours to play a game. So for us, it's like, it's no, if I'm going to teach someone something, I would rather teach it with a big board in the middle and have this big experience. So this one sits in an awkward spot. Now that we've had it on our shelf for a while, I don't reach for it because it's still an hour and everything is smaller. That central board is really small, and that was something that kind of frustrated me about it. Like, I wish they'd done a folding board so that it could take up more table space, because it doesn't have that same presence. And in this game, you are racing to improve these trackers, and the trackers just have no presence in the small version.
And even though you're individual in this, obviously this is the Kickstarter edition, and even though your individual player boards have that double layer, that main board doesn't. And so I remember the actual little tokens that you're using, it's very easy for them to kind of get bumped and slip around, and you're like, oh, where was this meant to be? And so I feel like that kind of, for me, takes away from the overall experience, where it feels like even more of a compromise of like, oh, like if I'm going to be in this world, I kind of want to do it properly. Like, I want to do it.
Yeah. And I feel pretty, I feel pretty meh about being in this world anyway. Don't get me wrong, I think Terraforming Mars as a series is an excellent game. The design, I really respect the mechanics. The way the cards all work together is phenomenal, actually. It's just not my style of game, and so I gave this one a 7.8, identical to the original Terraforming Mars, because I wouldn't be too fussed either way, whichever one you wanted to get on the table. I just think in our household, we're probably going to end up playing the big one. So I'm wondering about what role this has in our collection.
Yeah, for me, it slipped right down to an 8.6, which is still pretty excellent, because obviously the core of what you're doing is still something that I really enjoy. But I have to agree, I can never really see myself reaching for this when I have the option of reaching for the bigger, like proper
Even
Terraforming Mars.
though it takes so much longer.
Even though it takes longer, but also it's like if I only have an hour, I probably will reach for a different kind of game because it's like this will always feel like a compromise to me. So it's like it's almost like it's too painful because it reminds me of the bigger thing that I'm not getting to play, the bigger experience that I'm not getting to have.
But if Terraforming Mars, the original, didn't exist, you would love this
game.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what you're saying.
Yeah, but I would almost even open it up, even though it's so high in my rankings, I would even open it up to, this is a game that I could potentially move on from our collection because... Again, it's like we've had it now for a while, and it's like I just never really feel like reaching for it.
Oh, the art and everything's so much nicer.
You committed to all the player
really
boards
like
and the neoprene mats and
all the deluxification. I am very wed to that. We'll see how long this stays in our collection. And this one also has a cooperative mode, so if you're into co-op, this could be a better option for you than the original. So that is Terraforming Mars for the second time around.
Yes,
in this
video. Eris Expedition. Now.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to go here? Here?
Anywhere. We can go anywhere. Okay, let's do Tiny Turbo Cars. So this is a game that was very hotly anticipated by me.
Yeah.
By me in this household. Not so much Maggie. This was a game that I personally wanted to back because I really like Horrible Guild as a publisher. They publish some games that are very much on the leaning towards fun, I would say.
Yeah.
And they always have kind of unique qualities about them or unique production things in them. The reason that I was attracted to Tiny Turbo Cars and backed it on Kickstarter, this is the collector's edition, is because at the center of this game, the main mechanic is a real-time mechanic where you are using a slider puzzle. So you remember those slider puzzles where you are sliding pieces around to try and form a picture? Well, I've always been super terrible at them. Like,
Me too.
So terrible at them. But for some reason, I saw it as a component, and yes, it is a huge gimmick. But when I was reading about how it worked, I was so intrigued and I had to try it. And the way that it works is that everybody at the same time is going to pick up a slider puzzle that has been randomized by the player before them. And so they're going to turn it over, and then everybody at the same time is trying to program movement for their car that is in a race. And the race is the main board that's at the center of the table. And along this racetrack, you have obstacles and hazards that you need to avoid. You also don't want to be running into the side walls.
Yeah.
You're basically trying to get from one end of the track to the finish line as quickly as possible and with as little disturbance as possible. And so what you're going to be doing is in real time, you're going to be trying to slide around this puzzle because only the two middle rows in a 4-row grid are going to play out as actions. And so each of the tiles has an action on it. And that might be just to move forward one step or to move diagonally twice. And all of these other actions, there's a plus symbol which doubles the next program move, or there's a minus which does the opposite. There's a torpedo. Torpedo? Yeah, it's a torpedo that basically fires out the front in the row that you're in on the racetrack and is going to cause damage to any other players in front of you. So there are all these actions that you can program in, but the pressure on you is that there is a pile of smiley faces. Well, there's a pile of faces that goes from very happy through to very unhappy. And what you're going to be doing is when you feel confident that you've got the moves programmed in, you're going to put down your puzzle and you're going to grab the next smiley face. And everybody else around the table is now under more pressure and programming and then grabbing another smiley face until the last person, when one person is left working on their puzzle, everyone's going to count down from 10 and then they have to stop. And the last person's going to take a penalty of losing a battery. And the battery is essentially your life system in this game. So you start with 3 batteries. Every time you take damage, you're going to be turning over the batteries. And then when you've run out of battery, your car's just going to fall on its side and it's going to stay that way until you can spend your next 3 actions in order to get back up again and refuel recharge all those batteries and then go again. So there's a penalty involved with taking too much damage. So then what happens is once everyone's grabbed all of those tokens, we then play it out in turn order from the order in which you grabbed the token. To play out moving your little car. And in this game, you are going to be selecting from a range of car meeples that also have an asymmetric ability associated with them. They're very thematic, and the little cars are very cute. It's a part I really like about this game.
Car tokens or the
actual
car
cars.
pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're going to be, then playing out however you programmed it. And of course, because of the pressure element, that's lots of mistakes that get made along the way. There are things like water spills where when you hit them, it reverses all of your diagonal movement. So then you end up somewhere where you weren't expecting to.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty funny to watch how people's games play out.
Sometimes people get stuck behind one obstacle for a turn
for a long time.
It's like, oh no, I forgot to do this. And then as soon as you, there are some types of obstacles that as soon as you kind of hit them, that's it. Like you're out for the round. And so, so it can be funny, but also frustrating depending on what side of the player card you might be.
So this was a highly anticipated game for me just because I love to see a new mechanic that I'm not expecting, especially a slider puzzle. Haven't seen that before in a board game. And it played out pretty much as expected with my ability to do a good job of it. I wasn't very good at it. My sister, who, if you watch the channel, we play a lot with her. She's an engineer. She was fantastically fast at programming in this puzzle.
Left us all in the dust.
She left us in the dust.
She's very good.
Very good. But the frustrating thing about this game is that if one person is really good at a slider puzzle, as you can imagine, they get quite an advantage because they can do it really quickly, and that puts a lot of time pressure on the other players. And then the thing that frustrates me is the real-time element of it. If it's really dictated by the group. And so if the group want to race and just want to program in whatever and don't really care about driving their car into obstacles, then you kind of feel a little bit like, oh, I didn't really get a chance to optimize my puzzle or I didn't get enough time with it to do a good job. And that's a little bit frustrating because it's the most fun part of the game. And the other thing about this game is I feel like there's a lot of time dedicated to what I would call admin. So there's this point at which at the end of a round, you need to randomize the slider puzzle and everyone's meant to turn it over and not look at it and slide the pieces around.
That is super awkward.
It is really awkward to try and slide and find the one gap and slide it upside down. So you're working at this for ages, it feels like, and that's just downtime. So everyone's like randomizing. And you're just kind of
staring at each other in the face and kind of and feeling like you're not really doing much because sometimes because you can't see it and they're quite small, is like they kind of get a little bit stuck when it's upside down. I didn't really have issues when it's like facing up and I'm sort of getting to see what I'm doing. I didn't have any, but upside down it almost made no sense because I have no idea what I'm like trying to do and I don't think I'm making this harder or making so it just sort of felt a bit.
I wish there was a quicker way, but there's really no quicker way to do that. And then everyone is doing the puzzle part and the real time part, but that goes by so quickly. And then once that's done, every person around the table is like, okay, what's your next step? Well,
playing out your full
program turn. So then I go forward 2, then I jump, and then I go right, and then I, and then I hit this obstacle. Oh no, now I've run out of battery. And it feels like you just wait a long time. And then we go back into the randomization of it again. And it just feels like there's so much time before it comes down to the puzzle part. And then the puzzle part is over so quickly. So the uniqueness of the game is just, to me, too minimized in the other stuff that's going on.
It does feel like, the flow is stunted. Like it just sort of, it comes to a screeching halt when you're like, okay, so let's play it out. And then it's like, oh, I made a mistake. And so your turn ended up getting cut short really quickly. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then, so I found myself often not feeling invested in what was sort of happening. But having said that, I also am not the type, which is why I wasn't really, anticipating this one as much. I don't really enjoy car games in general. I don't enjoy race games. So there was very little that
appeal.
There was very little appeal.
I know. I was drawn in by the gimmick, and I do
really got you.
I do still think there's something in the slider puzzle real time fun that it is that part of it is really fun. And if you do like the theme and the car racing and you enjoy watching other people's turns play out, there's a great catch-up mechanic in this where you get these shield tokens that basically stop you from losing battery if you're, lower in the rank.
If you're
losing the race.
Going far behind, if there's too many people in front of you, you end up getting one for every person in front of you kind of thing.
Yeah. But for me, this game is, let's see, what did I rate it? I gave it a 6.2, and really because I have a low tolerance for admin. I don't like fiddliness and I don't like downtime very much.
Yeah.
And so that's why it got a lower rating from me.
Well, I'm surprised that mine is higher than yours. I don't even know why. Well, mine's a 6.3, which is not really that much higher.
Similar.
But sort of similar.
I think you have a higher tolerance for admin. You're much more willing for everyone to play out their turn. Like, I get super frustrated and bored with that process.
I just find that I'm not invested. I think partly in the theme. I can see, like, again, as Amy said, if you and your playing group love cards, I can see also like smaller, like younger kids or people playing with families that I think would really enjoy that, because it's quite simple, and maybe you just, you kind of give yourself more time to do some of the puzzle, or maybe if the kids are too young, that puzzle might be a little bit tricky.
Hard,
but realistically, even playing it with a whole bunch of grown-ups, we often were like, I like my first turn ran into a wall, and now, it's sort of, I'm out of the round. So yeah, I think it's not for us.
Not for us, so we'll be moving that on for our collection, unfortunately. Okay, what else have you got on your side? Oh, a classic.
So we're going to go with Dominion. So this is specifically Dominion Intrigue. Dominion, the regular Dominion, was our main, or at least my main, gateway game. So this is the one that just stayed with me, and after we played it, like some friends introduced us to Dominion, and I was like, what is this? And I remember, like, during the week, because we would catch up and do like a midweek catch up, and then it's like, okay, we'll catch up next week. The whole time I would just be at work thinking, okay, next time maybe I'll do this strategy, maybe I'll get these cards. And essentially it's a very, very pure deck builder, in that you start with a combination of different cards in the market, but you've got some basic starting cards in your hand, and they're usually a combination of, some of them are coin cards that allow you to purchase some of those cards in the market, and some of them are going to be like your end of game point type cards that during the game are not very useful. In fact, they actually get in the way of your hand at any given point, and you can't really use them for anything. But at the end of the game, they're going to be the only thing that matters. So this game kind of creates this really interesting dynamic where on your turn, you kind of, you're shuffling your deck, you get your hand of cards, and you're going, okay, so I've got this amount of money that I can spend. And so you start looking at, what are the cards that are available? Oh, maybe I'll get this card. And so you're purchasing cards to then add to your deck. And so those cards are going to be either giving you the ability to do particular things, or take additional actions, or get, or increase your buying ability. Or you can also use your coins to almost buy more valuable cards, so cards with a higher coin value. Which means that then, again, like in future turns, instead of me getting, one coin, all of a sudden I'm going to have way more coin in the one card to spend. And so it's this balance of building your engine, so to speak, one kind of hand at a time in that deck, but also keeping an eye for when the game is going to tip over. And now it's about really spending all your cards or your money in getting the point cards that you don't want at the start of the game or during the game, but you definitely do want at the end, because they're the only thing that's going to matter.
Yeah, I love that too about this game. It is a game that feels like it's played in two halves, and you're not quite sure when that next half of the game is going to take place, and you're watching everybody else, and you're like, at what point is someone going to start collecting point cards and buying those point cards and putting them into their deck? And at that point, you should probably think about it doing it too.
Yeah.
I love that element of the game. This is definitely the most pure and still, I think, the most elegant deck building game that I've ever played, because it really feels, you feel the momentum build in that customized deck that you're building. So I love the way that in this game they give you a selection. There's so many expansions for this game. We only have Intrigue in our collection. We've played the original, but there are many, many others. And what they give you is a different set of cards in each one. And then in every game, you're only using a sub-segment of those cards, so you're choosing them. And the way that they interact with each other is going to change the strategy that you use throughout the game. So maybe you've got a festival card, and you want to have a lot of those, or maybe there's a witch in there which is going to have curse cards,
negative point cards,
changes the dynamic of the game in a completely different way, and you have to think about impacting on other players in the game.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different combinations that it always feels slightly different, even if you're just swapping out a couple of cards and then trying to outwit your opponents as to the best combo of those and what to start to buy early versus mid-game versus then moving to the points. It's just like, it's so satisfying when you get it right.
And this was one of those games that we didn't, it was our gateway game, and then we didn't play it for ages. And then later on, after we'd played all these other games, we're like, oh, let's play a game of Dominion.
Still good.
And we just played, and it's like, this is just such an excellent design. It's just so simple, but so satisfying. And so, for that reason, I think this is probably
it's an excellent game, and it's a game that if you haven't played it, you must play it. It's just one of those games. It's like you have to experience it because it is just so perfect the way it is.
I'm gonna check my I don't even know if
what did you give it?
I actually give it a 9. So this is
very
a 9
high
for me. Yes, it's another it's a contender. They're definitely a contender.
Yeah, you've had a couple of very high rated games in this one, or more than a couple.
Yeah.
I gave it 8.5. I think it is an excellent design, mechanically speaking. Just beautiful. I love the momentum in the build with your deck, and I love that transition into the point scoring element of the game. I love the frustration of drawing a bad hand, but then the fact that you can get cards that allow you to draw more cards. Yeah. The one thing that holds it back from being higher in my estimation or higher in my rankings is that sometimes this game can drag a little bit when it lands on a player that is and then I get to do another action, and then I get to draw another card, and then another action, and then another card, and then another action, and
it's sequence of never-ending. So it's it becomes a never-ending turn. So and this allows me to do this, which allows me to do this, and then you do this, and it's
and that's not the most interesting experience. Yeah. And then if their whole deck is made up of cards like that, it's every round it kind of slows the game down as they move through their turn, and they've got to do it because that's the system they've set up in order to make money or to
sometimes
be able to purchase
feel
something.
When I sort of sit there, I'm I don't feel like this is more helpful for you. I don't feel like this is actually helping.
20 cards, you still bought one.
This didn't really do that much for you.
Yeah, so for me, for that reason, that holds it a little back for me, but it's still a game that I recommend all the time, especially if someone says, I like deck building. It's well, have you played Dominion? And if the answer is no, it's no, you have to. So check that out if you haven't already, although I'm sure a lot of people have and love this game. But that is Dominion Intrigue. The next game is a game called Unfair. Now, Unfair and its newer little sibling, Funfair, are from Australian publisher, Good Games Publishing. Yeah. And Unfair is a really interesting game where you are trying to run a funfair. You're trying a theme park. And in this game, the setup is really cool because depending on the number of players, you're going to add in these thematic decks into the game. And these thematic decks relate to, it could be
all the attractions that you're going to have.
It could be jungle, it could be pirate theme.
It could, So
a whole heap of different packs, and there's expansions that you can get as well. But basically, these are going to form the cards that go into the main deck of cards that you're going to be drafting from a central area to build out the attractions in your theme park and all of the facilities associated with those attractions. And you're trying to do that because they're going to give you points. They're going to attract people into your theme park, which is going to give you money. But you also have these blueprint cards, which are objective cards that you're committing to. So once you have these blueprints, you've got to commit to them because they're going to be worth negative points if you haven't completed them.
But also lots of good points if you do.
Lots of good points, but the game is quite harsh in that if you don't complete this, it's going to be really bad for you. And there are many other ways this game is quite mean. That's why it's called Unfair. There are a couple of events that happen along the way. In Unfair, there is an event that occurs at the start of the round that gives you a choice between really being nice to everyone and being not so nice to everybody. So that's the first point where you can be quite mean to people if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah.
And then there's also a way that the game is quite mean to you, because then there's a city event that happens that affects all players, which starts off, I think, being nice to you and then gets meaner and meaner as the game goes on. And then there's lots of ways to interact with your opponent's theme parks as well. You can steal features from them.
Yeah, you can sort of sabotage things, make them have
get
to
rid of their
destroy
stuff.
things. Yeah,
There's many ways that you can cause a lot of problems in this game.
I just really love how, for this really surprised me how thematic it actually felt, and how much you really felt like that creative sense of I'm building my park and I'm seeing it come to life, and you've got all these things of balances of like, oh well, you need to make sure that you have enough capacity for some of the for the attractions and the number of people that you're able to put, but then you have with those events with the unfair type stuff. I think I've made the mistake of overcommitting with some of those blueprints, and then going, I cannot believe the sequence of unfair events that took place that just completely destroyed this beautiful park creation that I had made, to the point where I'm just like, I'm so sad now. I'm just gonna sit in the corner and
it's in the title.
Curl up in a bowl.
The warning is in the title.
I did not. Yeah,
you did not heed the warning of the unfair.
I didn't. But it's like, even though I hate feeling those sort of defeats, even if it's like by the game, I still feel like overall it's like I just enjoy that sense of that creation, and how many different packs, like all the different themes of parks that you can.
And it's not just the theme, but actually the attraction style and the level of interactivity between the players changes depending on what theme packs you include as well. So it creates a lot of variability in the gameplay. I really enjoyed or enjoy Unfair. I think it's a great game, and we don't get it off the shelf very often, but I wish I did more, because I know a lot of our friends will really love this game, the ones that we haven't introduced them to it. So it's just really great. I don't know, there's something about it that it's just like more than the sum of its parts.
It really is. Yeah.
There's something about it that the theme comes together really nicely. It's a lot of fun. I love events in a game too, and there's multiple styles of events. So
what's your rating for
My
it?
rating for it is 8.
That's my rating. Yeah, I'm an 8
yes.
as well for Unfair. I think it's a very solid design. I love how you can, with all the different expansions as well, like how the replayability of it comes from, all the different packs that you can mix in. And even when I have a devastating time with it, I feel like I still have a great time.
I will note that we did a review of Funfair versus Unfair, and we did say we liked Unfair more, and given that we moved Funfair on from our collection, just because it's a much lighter game experience. So for that reason, Unfair is definitely the more gamers game, like more difficult layered experience.
But it's also
much meaner.
Yes, a lot meaner.
Yeah.
And so some people don't really enjoy that.
So unlike Maggie, you should heed that warning.
Yes.
The next game.
Bullet. So this is a game that I didn't really know that much about. All I knew was how much you wanted to attain it.
I know, I really did. I really wanted this game for such a long time because it's really unique. It's a really fast-playing arcade-style game where it's trying to replicate that video game genre or app games, where you are it's basically a puzzle game where you're trying to clear your board as much as possible, and there are more things that are coming at you. And
bullets.
They're bullets coming at you in this particular case. Bullets coming at you and filling up these columns, and you're then trying to use patterns to clear them as quickly as possible. It's also, again, a simultaneous play, real-time style game where everybody at the same time is going to be drawing these tokens out of their bags, and when they draw them, they're going to get added to one of your columns. And there are 5 different colors that have different values on them, and that's going to dictate where they go in your puzzle. But then you have these pattern cards, and these pattern cards are going to show you different patterns that relate to that grid. And once you've got that pattern on there, you can use that pattern card to clear those bullets out. And the reason why you want to do that is because as the bullets accumulate in the puzzle, they're going to get down to the bottom of the columns, and then they're going to move across, and if they get to do that, that's a bullet that gets through, and you're going to lose a life point. This game has player elimination, so once you are out of lives, you are out of the game, and people continue playing until...
It's last player standing.
Mm-hmm. It's last player standing. And in this game as well, there's a high degree of character...
Like
asymmetric abilities. Yeah. And that means that you all have, slightly different actions that you can do along the way, because you also have what's called AP in this game, which is a bit confusing, but action points. And the action points you can spend in order to use these actions that are going to allow you to do things like clear up your puzzle board and just manipulate your pattern cards that you have available to you.
Move things around to try and create those patterns.
To create the patterns and clear those bullets. The other really fun thing about this game is that when you clear bullets from your puzzle, they go onto your neighbor's puzzle for the next round. And so the better job that the person before you is doing, the worse of a time you're going to have next round because you're going to get more and more bullets. And you keep playing until your bag of bullets is empty for that round. So you're going to just have this continuous wave of bullets coming at you. This game is interesting. I would say straight up that probably I didn't have as much fun with it as I had hoped to.
I feel like it was a bit of a mismatch for me. Well, in terms of like preferences, in terms of the type of game that I prefer. I think this really suits a lot of people that love that asymmetry of getting to know, what is that my unique character does, and how do I, trigger that? But then also like looking at what does that person do? And then a lot of, I think obviously the puzzle itself is quite abstract because you're just looking at patterns and then going, and then when I activate that pattern, I get rid of those things, but then this other thing kind of happens. And it's just like, it's not something that I resonate with as much.
The other thing is because everyone's working on their puzzle at the same time, you're not exactly watching what other people are doing. And I'm not saying that my friends cheat.
It's very easy for to lose track of what other people are doing. But you definitely don't cheat without intending to.
And I'm joking. Nobody, hopefully no one's cheating on purpose, just making mistakes. I'm probably making lots of mistakes in my puzzle, but it is like just one of those games where there's so much going on, but you're not really paying attention to what other people are doing. You're very focused on your own puzzle until you get that wave of bullets coming from the person before you, which is really the only point of interaction between players. Yeah. Again, that is quite against my gaming preferences.
Yeah. So this is, it's not probably going to rate very highly.
I'm so sad about this. This one I'm having a really hard time with because my rating for it is 6.6 because it is lower play interaction. I don't enjoy the puzzle as much as I thought I would. And there's a high degree of the asymmetric powers, which is just something that I'm just not that into myself. I'd prefer to have everyone on the same so with the same
field.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a 6.4 for me. So again, it's also on the kind of lower side. And again, it's not because I think it's a bad game. It's just not a game for me. It's like I agree that the puzzle is not something that I tend to resonate with. I'm not really into like figuring out like this character does this particular thing, and it's like it's not really my.
And this is where I'm going to talk about all my things that go on in my mind about this game about my problems with games and the reason why our collection is probably too big is that this is now, you heard our ratings for it, under 7 for both of us, probably should be culled out of the collection. Here's my sticking points. 1, it was so hard for me to find, and I do have a bit of a hoarding tendency and a bit of a collector's mentality when it comes to games. When I find something hard to find, I find it harder to get rid of. So that's one thing. The other element about it is that I think the mechanics are really unique, and that for me makes it harder to move on as well because there's nothing else like it in our collection, and I admire different mechanics. And I think, and that then plays back into the collection thing of like having a little bit of everything, having a lot of the things I love, but also having things that are unusual. And Bullet is unusual. It's unlike anything else I've played. And for that reason, it's like, you might want to play this game because it's
But I would pose
Something
that question.
different.
It's like, can you see yourself wanting to take it out of the shelf? And
Not
play?
really.
So then what's the point? So, and again, this is
No.
obviously like a discussion for collectors as well. I guess, sometimes you collect things not because you're going to use them, but it's because of their collection value, whatever, however we can quantify that. But it's like, but I'm so practical. Like, I'm not a collector. I'm the type of person that will get rid of things even while I'm still using them and go, oh, actually, that would have been really handy, but I got rid of it. Like, I moved it onto Goodwill or whatever. So for me, I'm like, if I'm not using it, it's like I'm quite comfortable getting rid of it and going, well, yeah, it's less stuff. It's good. Like, move it along, pass it along. But
Just take it away.
I
don't want to talk about it anymore.
It's too confronting. It's too painful.
Just I don't know, sell it without me knowing. The next game is a game called Merchants of the Dark Road, which we did cover. This was another game that we backed. We back a lot of games. And in this series, in this particular episode, you'll note that there's a few games that I've backed that I've been a little bit disappointed in. This game, we backed the deluxe edition of this game. It is a game that is all about pick up and deliver. It has a kind of rondelle in the center of the board, and we all know that I love a rondelle. But in this game, you are a traveling caravan.
Well, you're a merchant.
You're a merchant,
yes,
in a traveling caravan, and on this caravan, you have a spot where you can pick up polyomino tiles, and these polyomino tiles have to fit nicely into a little puzzle that's on your player board.
All the goods that you're picking up along the way.
All the goods,
It can be books, it can be musical instruments, all sorts of wares.
Yes, and you're going to be using dice to move around the rondelle and to trigger different types of actions that are going on in your player board. So you're going to be using choosing a dice with a value that's going to set in motion your little caravan to move around the rondelle, and then wherever you stop, you get the choice of taking two different actions that are adjacent to the place where you stop. And basically, you are going to be doing things like picking up people from the tavern, I believe. Stopping there to grab some people and put them onto your caravan. You're also going to be getting some order cards. And then you're going to be trying to deliver all of the right goods that you've got on your caravan to the right towns, as well as the people you've picked up along the way, taking those them to the towns.
You're going on that direction,
jump on board, get a lift. So we're going to be basically picking things up and delivering them to different locations. There's an interesting twist in this game where there is a follow mechanic. So you can go out on a journey to one of these towns, and when you do so, you get to offer to the other opponents or people around the table if they would like to come with you, and you could all take your caravans on this journey, and so they can follow you, and so they can opt in to go to the same city that you're traveling to, and that has some implications for the treasures that you might find along the way, as well as your ability to deliver off turn. So when it's not your turn, you might be able to deliver some things there, and that could be a nice opportunistic bonus for you. Now,
so
we'll shift into how we felt about playing the game.
So this was one that I was extremely looking forward to.
One of the most anticipated, I would say.
Because the aesthetic of it, and even just the concept of these, it's like, ooh, these traveling merchants, and you're taking your wares, and it's, through a dark road, but it's not like a spooky, scary sort of thing. It's just like you're gathering around the campfire and telling each other tales of, things that you may have come across. And it's like, oh, yeah. And so I was like, I love that. I love that kind of world. When we started kind of playing it, I actually love the production of it, and obviously we do have
I have to say one of the best.
We have a deluxe edition of it. I love that you have this magnetic wheel that attaches to the board, and that dictates almost like the prices or the value of the different goods, so that you can actually manipulate it, and then it'll kind of shift throughout the game, and that's going to determine at what price you're able to then offload your wares sometimes. So it's like, I really enjoy that, the little components of the lantern and the all of the little elements in the artwork and the art and the cards. I've really enjoyed all of that. It is beautiful, stunning production, and really tactile, which I love. Playing it though, again, and I don't know if it's partly the pick up and deliver thing, it almost just felt like it didn't feel as crunchy and as layered as I wanted it to be. So like it's a fine game. Like I enjoyed every time that I've played it. I've enjoyed myself, but I never feel ultra satisfied by the end of it. Like I just wanted it to be a little bit
very
more
light.
It is quite light.
It's very light, and every part of the puzzle that you're doing is also light.
Yes, all the elements are light.
Elements. Yeah. The polyomino tile placement onto your caravan never feels particularly difficult.
Yeah, it's very rare that you're like, oh no, I have no space.
I've messed up.
It's like there's often plenty of opportunities to offload things, and there's no component that feels super tense or that
and the
adds a lot of
rondelle, you can have multiple caravans on a single spot, so no one's really blocking you out of spots. So that feels pretty light and pretty easy. Not a lot of tension there.
The other thing is, it feels very very homogeneous. That's the only word that comes to mind. It's like it doesn't even matter like which location you end up going to. Almost like the objectives, or not the objectives, but the things that you can deliver. It's pretty much the same. So
you can get benefits at a lot of different places around the place.
And it all sort of feels fairly even. It's almost like it's too balanced too balanced in like what makes it less interesting, because it's not like, oh, I know that if I go heavy on this thing, then it's probably going to be more of these types of elements. And so it just, in a way, I can see how that then makes it more accessible potentially for people that, and again, it's a much more relaxing sort of experience, but we individually like more of a tense.
We like competitive tense experiences, and this was a little bit, for me, it felt very rinse and repeat, because even in the game itself, you're picking stuff up and then you're delivering that stuff, and then you're just picking more stuff up and then you're delivering that stuff, and nothing's really getting in my way of doing that. It's just about, can I do that faster and better than everybody else? And for me, that's just, it's not exciting. And the one part that is the most exciting, the follow component, and just, more interesting mechanically, I also felt like the journeys you were taking, I don't know, they could have just been more interesting.
Yeah.
Often it just ended up with, okay, you get one benefit or something negative happens, but it wasn't that strong either way.
It's never super exciting, and it's never super devastating. They're always just,
okay. Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about the game. It's just
even the difference between, like, because it's like the darker sort of road that you can take, or the more challenging one, and then the lighter one. It's like even the differences between those two didn't really feel that compelling.
Yes.
And so I was like,
yeah. So it's all a bit. I mean, beautiful game, beautifully. Obviously, all the production quality. What have I given it? I have given it 6.7.
Oh, I'm actually the opposite. I gave it a 7.6.
Oh, so quite a lot higher.
Yeah, a lot higher, because I do love the production, and that goes a long way for me. Like, if aesthetically is like, I really love seeing this on the table. I love how tactile everything is. I really like moving my little caravan around but overall, is it again that I'm constantly like, oh, let's play it again? It's like, no, I feel like I get to a point where I'm like, I feel like I've done it.
I just felt like, especially at a higher player count, it really dragged on for me. But then you want the higher player count for the follow action to be more triggered more often. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of just a nowhere for me.
It's not a bad game.
Does that mean you're going to save it from us moving it on?
I would be open to moving it on. You're open to moving it on. I would be open to moving it on, and largely because, again, like I feel like I've done it. Like, I feel like I've played it now enough, and it's like I enjoyed my time with it. But I don't really know if there's that much more that I'm going to discover.
That's surprisingly high for you. 7.6. Okay.
Well, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. That makes sense.
I will go for something beautiful.
Yeah.
Clearly. You would hate that. She will do that. She's going to hate that.
We'll edit that out later. So Merchants of the Dark Road is a pick up and deliver game that falls a bit flat. And so now I want to talk about a pick up and deliver game.
It's another pick up and deliver.
That I actually bucks the trend for us in terms of pick up and delivers. It delivers, pick up and deliver games.
It picks up and it delivers.
It does deliver. And that's Maglev Metro. So this game is all about building a magnetic levitation network of trains. And you're going to be doing that in New York, and on the other side of the board, Berlin, if you prefer.
Yeah.
And what you're going to be doing is using acrylic tiles to build out a network that you're going to be able to move your little train across and pick up passengers and deliver them to whichever station they're hoping to get to, which is basically the color of that passenger. Now, The interesting thing about this game is your player board, and on your player board you are going to be unlocking things, as many things as possible, to help you move further, pick up more passengers, drop off more passengers, unlock different types of passengers that you can pick up.
Even decide the number of passengers that you can pick up. And
And so you are building this, well, it's kind of like engine building, because what you're trying to do is, you start off very slow. You can only move a tiny bit, and you can only put one piece of track down. But as you start to unlock the things on your player board, you can get more and more and more and more done. And it is super satisfying.
It really is. It's one of those, like, you're kind of looking at your board and you feel so restricted, so limited at the start. You're like, how are we going to ever get anything done in here? And then as things progress and you start unlocking some of these things, and you start kind of going, oh, okay, I just need to open this little bit, or I just need to, okay, like, I've got my eye on that particular type of station. I'm going to make sure that I unlock that color so that I can pick up and deliver people to that color station. Or, want to refill, like, there's that whole thing of, like, refilling the stations with passengers. And who's going to do it? And then someone is like, I spent all my time refilling it, and you came over and you stole
and you took them.
all of my passengers. And so, because they're not technically your passengers, like, they're just passengers that want to get to wherever they need to get to. I also love visually, how those lines layer up with those acrylic
tiles,
because it ends up looking like when you see maps of like a subway network or the train network. And so it's like, that is so cool and satisfying. It did have a couple of production issues actually, where some of them don't quite fit together.
It's ambitious.
It was an ambitious production, and I do enjoy that double layered board.
But I would have rather that they went ambitious, and maybe 100%. Sometimes the pieces don't quite fit, because everything about the board is, like, very deep. I think it might be triple layered, and so that everything can click into place. And a lot of the times things get a little bit stuck. But we forgive it, because it absolutely adds to the experience, having that 3D kind of element.
And then you're physically having your little passengers on your train.
They go on your train.
But then they sometimes, if you don't have enough of them, they fall, and it looks more like a coffin that is.
It's like coffin. It's a bit weird.
Why is it lying there? And
so again, you'd rather them do
100%.
that, so that the passengers can stand up and it looks really cool.
100%.
And it adds to the experience.
Yes.
But I want to talk about why this pick up and deliver, because often we say in our channel, pick up and deliver, not that into it. But Maglev Metro, one element that I really like about it is the fact that you do have to, so there might be pink meeples, for example, or pink passengers that you can't pick up until you've unlocked the ability to pick them up on your board. But the clever thing about it is that when passengers are being refilled onto stations, so you can go and pick them up, you start with a very few colours of passengers in that bag, but the first person who unlocks a new colour of passenger gets to take all of the supply of that passenger and put them into the bag. And so now when people are refilling the stations, this pink passenger's coming out that only one person can pick up and deliver at the moment. So that one person gets this time advantage of, like, great, like, I'm the only person that can deliver these, and my network is set up perfectly to do it, and everybody else then starts scrambling to, like, catch up with them and unlock pink passengers so they can get in on the action. I really like that about the game, because it creates this, I don't know, it's like this interactive element that is kind of, it's not obvious when you first, like, read the rule book and how everything works. And then once you experience that and you start to see the things that you can't do, you're like, oh no, I focused on the wrong area of my board.
I love the different levers where it's like, at the start of the game, the fact that every single element is something that you can unlock and expand. So even, like, the number of new tiles that you get to build in terms of, like, expanding your network, which can be very helpful early on. But then it's like, well, midway through the game, once you've got most of your connections set up, it's like, I don't really want my meeples there. I want to move those robots to unlock
so
other areas.
You can shift the prioritization on your board to then focus on being able to do more of a different type of action.
Even how many of those robots you can move at when you're taking the move action. It's like, So there's just like constant tension.
And you can also
which area.
unlock additional actions, so you can take more actions on your turn. And then also there's this trade-off of unlocking more things to get done or passengers to pick up versus unlocking more end-of-game scoring bonuses. And I don't know, it's just like perfect. It's a perfect amount of tension. And the tension is versus other people in the race element, but then also versing yourself on the board, and just the tension of like, oh, I can only do so much, and what am I going to get done? And I love the...
And some of the colors are finite in terms of the color kind of meeples that you can, the sort of tokens that you can use for your board. So sometimes you're going to go, oh, like there's no more of those ones. And so I'm just going to have to try and make, and even the position, like for some of the different, for the different areas, it's like you can only fit this color robot here. And so it's like that's another layer of tension and complexity in a really, really fun way.
And it's also it doesn't overstay its welcome as well. Like it starts really slow, but it speeds up quite quickly. And the choices that you're making, aside from what to unlock, like your turns are actually quite quick. And so, you move around the table quite quickly. And I really appreciate that about the game, that we've been able to get lots of people into this really quickly. We've taken it to game days and nights as well. And it's just really a pleasure to teach because it's quite straightforward.
It also looks great on the table. So people are like, what are you playing? You got all the perspex and, all the lines. And like,
this one really surprised me, Maglev Metro. And I love this game. Want to keep it in our collection. I gave it a 8.1.
I give it an 8. So we're pretty close both. Solid game. I can't see myself getting rid of this anytime soon.
No,
it's one of
I
those,
really enjoy it.
If anyone ever offers to, like, do you want to have a game with us? Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every
we
time.
didn't end up backing the extra maps for it, but I might want to pick those up at some point.
They do look beautiful. Yeah. We did get a chance to see them, and I would be tempted, definitely.
Yes. So that is the 10th and final game, Maglev Metro. Thank you so much for watching along with this series. I hope you're still enjoying it. Please let us know what you think of these 10 games in the comments. And like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll be back with more content soon. But otherwise, bye for now.
Bye.